Good Monday afternoon. Hope you are doing well. How much do you expect a Torah leader to be familiar with the ways of the world? How much do you expect him to know all details of how the world functions and how people work? So I'm going to share with you an insight by a commentator on Pirkei Avot. Yesterday we mentioned that during this period of time, we study Pirkei Avot between Pesach and Shavuot. And in addition, there are those that focus on the 48 ways of acquiring Torah, 48 attributes that would be needed to be considered a Torah person. One of them is B'Yishuv. One of the 48 is B'Yishuv. What is Yishuv? So some say that you have to be a settled person, Yishuv Hadat. In other words, if you have the tendency of just jumping to conclusions and not sitting on things, that's a flaw and a problem that will not serve you well to guide others in Torah. So you have to be Adam Miyushav, that's settled. Rabbi Lifshitz, Rabbi Yisrael Lifshitz, a 19th century authority, says that Yishuv means actually something else as well. And that is, Sheyeheh Baki B'Yeshuvo Shel Olam. That he should be familiar with how the world works and how people interact. And so too he should be familiar with Derech Eretz. And he should be familiar with the science, what he calls Chochmat Tiviot. In other words, when you understand the world well, then you could apply Torah to it and guide people to live a Torah life as they live their physical life in this world. Now, included in it is to understand psychology and to even understand how to negotiate with others. Torah leaders as well have an agenda, right? They want our tradition to live on. They want the study of Torah and the practice of Judaism to enhance our Jewish experience. Sometimes you have to understand people to know how to get what you want. That's what he tells us, be Yeshuv. So it reminds me of a story I read. I mentioned that the young Reb Aaron Kotler and Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, at a very young age, they were perhaps 13 or 14, arrived in the suburb of Kovna, in the city of Slabotka, to be examined, to go through the exam and be tested if they will be accepted into the great Slabotka yeshiva. Now, the head of the yeshiva at the time, the Mashgiach, Rabbi Finkel, had a tendency of working with students and being sure that they do not become too snug or too haughty with themselves. So after they succeeded in their exam, he said to them, I need a few days to determine if I could accept you into the yeshiva. So that's what he turned to these young kids, and both of them were quite disappointed. They traveled. They both recognized very well that they have a tremendous amount to offer for the yeshiva. And here, young Reb Aaron and young Reb Yaakov were put on hold, and they were disappointed. But Reb Aaron sensed that this doesn't make sense. The 13-year-old sensed that something's wrong here. And therefore, he turns to his friend Yaakov, and he says, you know what, Yaakov? We don't have to just come to this yeshiva. There's another yeshiva in town. Meaning, in Slabotka, there were two yeshivas. There was Knesset Beis Yisrael, which was the famous Slabotka yeshiva. But then there was a smaller one, Knesset Beis Yitzchak. So he said to his friend, you know what, Yaakov, we could always just go to the other yeshiva if they don't want to accept us. Now, he said it, and he wanted to be sure that it would be in the earshot of someone of the administration. And indeed, when the Rosh Yeshiva Rabbi Finkel heard that these young two students are considering not entering into his yeshiva, but the other yeshiva, he immediately sent them a messenger that, you guys are accepted immediately. So it's quite fascinating that a 13-year-old was able to outmaneuver a head of a yeshiva who was much, much older than him because he had an understanding of Yeshuvo Shel Olam. He understood how people work. He understood how to negotiate. And that's one of the tools, and that's one of the attributes needed to be a successful Torah Jew. Be familiar with the world. So back to our question. How familiar does a Torah scholar have to be with the world? Very familiar, because Torah is there to guide us in life, and there has to be an understanding of what life is about. This is what our journey is about during this period of time. Let's focus on our journey to become better Jews, and Be'ezrat Hashem, by doing our part, we'll see that light at the end of the tunnel. We could return to a world that's functioning, and we could continue with what we believe in, with our values, as we interact with the world. Have a wonderful day.